I intend to make this talk brief because although what I'm going to be sharing is a great solution that would better humanity in a huge way, I don't expect anyone to actually pay attention or, think it holds any weight. So I'm just going to share the idea and start up front with addressing this issue of it being ignored outright. And why would that be? If someone has a good idea, why would it be ignored outright? And this idea, by the way, isn't just my own. Um, it's something that folks have recognized for many, many decades would be a great solution for society, but it's always been basically ignored. And why is that? Well, it's because, for the most part, it hasn't been made a popular idea and it hasn't been promoted by so called authorities. So most people wait for those two boxes to be checked off, so to speak. If the idea is popular and if it's being approved of by whoever they perceive of as an authority, then they'll consider it a good idea, or then they'll just automatically believe it's a good idea. But if it's not popular and it's not being promoted by who they think are authorities, they're not going to listen because in their mind, those are basically the prerequisites for something to be a good idea. Those are the stages of, R&D, research and development that take place prior to an idea, being exercised on a mass scale. So, and that basically comes down to what you could call cowardice or a fear of making a moral mistake. Um, this appeal to authority and appeal to what's popular is really rooted in an individual's inability to make judgment calls on their own because they have a doubt of their own ability to make such judgments. They're trained or conditioned or traumatized to defer their own judgment to these so-called authorities and the population at large, or as I said, what's popular, because they don't think that they can perceive of something that is valid and is also simultaneously not approved by authorities and gaining popular support. That's the deeper psychological side of why people defer to popularity and a so-called authority. And that's why they don't listen. They might hear an idea and initially think, well, I can't think of anything in particular wrong with this idea right off the bat, but there must be something wrong. And I'm sure that's what most of you will think when I just share this simple solution for society at large. So in previous talks, I brought up the fact that if land, water, and seed were recognized as natural resource birthrights for all humans, that would be the greatest contributor or helper against poverty and against exploitation, against oppression. It would further independence, freedom, health, wealth, more than anything else. But again, it's not a popular idea. It's not pushed by any authorities, and so it's ignored. So, related to society and nature on a grand scale, we all, most of us, use fuel on a regular basis, right? Fuel is a way that we power the motors in our cars and trucks and motorcycles and generators and on, right? Fuel is very important. we are dependent on sources of fuel that we cannot produce ourselves, right? The gasoline you get at the pump is not something you can make on the homestead, right? It's first of all coming from petroleum that requires, a drilling process, drilling machinery and refinement and all these things that you probably don't have access to in your backyard. If you even have a backyard, right? Most people living in cities now don't even have a little tiny patch of grass to have, a tomato plant. But to get right to it, you can power motors with pure ethanol, pure alcohol. You may have heard of flex fuel vehicles that can run on 85% ethanol. But in Brazil, they've been running E100, that is ethanol 100% motors for decades, right? And it goes much further back than that. Actually, the original Ford Model T could run on 100% ethanol, right? So this is not at all new technology. It's not at all something that needs like the kinks worked out, as many believe it to be, because they've just been propagandized with all this disinformation about ethanol and how it's, horrible for your engine and so on. Well, it's horrible for an engine that wasn't designed to use it, but if you have a machine that is designed to use it, it works perfectly fine without any difficulty, right? It's not like 100% ethanol fuel is impossible to have as a standard fuel for millions and millions of people in a reliable fashion. It most certainly can be done. It has been done, but most people don't even realize that. So why does this matter as far as solutions that would have the greatest benefit to humanity? Well, alcohol produced from plants is fairly simple to produce. You basically just ferment the plant matter and then you distill it. People have been doing this for thousands of years. This is not a complicated process, and it is something that people could do at their own home, in their own homestead, in their own backyard, right? You have a fruit orchard, you can take those scraps, you can ferment them, you can produce alcohol, you could put that in a engine that can burn that fuel, and voila, you have fuel independence, energy independence, and it's actually environmentally friendly because you have this like basically carbon neutral cycle where the plants absorb carbon dioxide, and then you can look into this further yourself. The basic point I wanted to make here is that if the powers that be really cared about helping people become more prosperous, free, independent, and even environmentally friendly, they would be promoting the fermentation of industrial hemp, which of course is still restricted, even though it has many other beneficial uses besides being great for turning into ethanol. They would be promoting folks doing this fermentation and distilling process so that you always have fuel available no matter what crisis occurs, right? You'll be able to get around, you'll be able to produce heat during the winter, on and on and on, right? But they're not promoting that. They want you to be dependent on what they provide. They want you to be dependent on the power grid. They want you to be enslaved to their system of control. So that's basically it. Simple as that. And again, most will probably just ignore this, not promote it, because they'll think there's something wrong with the idea, even though you could take 5 minutes to do a little research and verify everything I just told you about the Model T. You can find the particular Volkswagen vehicle that's been running E100 in Brazil for years, right? This is all verifiable, and it's all, you don't even need to verify it. You should be able to recognize, well, yeah, building an engine that can run on 100% alcohol probably is possible. Actually, it's probably been done, no doubt, right? This isn't like literal, this isn't rocket science, right? Yes, in fact, it has been done and can be done, and it would, again, further the independence, wealth, and happiness of society. But because the system is run by evil people at the top that control what you perceive and what you believe as far as what's possible, it's not going to get any airtime. Just like nutritional um, remedies don't get the airtime, right? And that information is suppressed. Likewise with this fuel solution that would be greatly beneficial. It basically comes down to promoting more independence, right? And people up top hate independent people. They want people dependent. So anything that would make you independent health-wise, right? Like growing herbs in your backyard that support your health, like oregano and olive leaf, for example, onions. Instead of promoting that for everybody, they push harmful drugs, right, with terrible side effects. And yeah, it's just an evil system, and I look forward to it ending before long. But until then, I thought I'd just throw this out there for maybe the 1 in a million that would actually uh, try to coordinate with others to make this fermentation and distillation process and the use of these E100 engines available so that we aren't stuck in this position of dependency. All right, thank you for listening.